Hello again, everybody. Welcome to Michael's Record Collection. I'm Michael Citro, your host, and doing things a little bit differently for this show. It's kind of an unprepared show, and I've enlisted the help of Brian Colburn. He's returning from the popular Playlist Wars podcast. They are on a little bit of a hiatus right now, but they will be back and triumphant once again. Sadly, we're here to talk about the loss of Christine McVie from the iconic Fleetwood Mac, a band that has always been, they've just always been around. I don't remember discovering Fleetwood Mac. They just have always been there. I don't know, Brian, if you have a sort of an opening moment with Fleetwood Mac, if you have an origin story, or if it's been the same way for you, that just have always been there.
I have a very interesting origin story for Fleetwood Mac because Rumors was released the same year I was born, 1977. And my mom has told me over many, many years that a lot of the time when she was pregnant with me, she would just put her headphones on and listen to the Rumors album start to finish at night, every night. And she has always accredited the fact that she listened to that album throughout the entire pregnancy with me as to why I am so musically addicted, because every night she listened to that record and I remember hearing it constantly throughout growing up. So to say it's ingrained in my DNA might be slightly literal. So the news today really did hit home for me. From I'm kind of a obvious from the person's perspective, from a fan of the group and of hers, and then just from a personal perspective, because I feel like it was kind of part of my musical DNA.
Yeah, your mom took a chance there, because that could have wrecked every relationship you ever had. I mean, because that was the breakup album. But yeah, we
Mm-hmm.
are recording this the day that the news came out that Christine McVie has passed away after an illness. And I guess this caught a lot of people off guard. I know that Stevie Nicks has posted online that she didn't know Christine was ill until a few days ago, and wanted to get over to England to see her, and didn't make it. So uh, it's a sad thing. This was one of those ones that hit me very much in the same way as Rick Ocasek and Tom Petty and David Bowie and Neil Peart. This is one of those deaths that this is, like I said, an iconic band, a band that has had hit after hit. It's been a band that's gone through a lot of twists and turns, and has had different levels of success in different formats. And Christine McVie sort of started at the end of one era and kind of got through like a middle part, and then ushered in the next era when they really achieved worldwide stardom. And a lot of people will, they point to Lindsey Buckingham, they point to Stevie Nicks, but Christine McVie, for me, is the glue of Fleetwood Mac. She was the connective tissue. I mean, she shines on the Stevie songs, she shines on the Lindsey songs, and of course, when she gets her own turn in the spotlight, she does amazingly well as also. So, a great singer, a great keyboard player, very good songwriter. She kind of was, like I said, she was that connective tissue for Fleetwood Mac, in my opinion.
I agree with that, and I'll take that a step further. I was talking earlier today with Jim Santora, who's the author of the Underrated Rock Book. We've had him on Playlist Wars before, and we were going back and forth, and he brought up the fact that, similar to what you said, everyone automatically thinks Lindsey and Stevie, and there she was, always kind of this commanding force. And I kind of tipped my hat to his book title and said she is the underrated member of Fleetwood Mac. And the way I described it to one of my friends was sugar and spice. I look at Stevie Nicks as the spice of Fleetwood Mac's sound from the female vocalist standpoint. And I look at Christine's vocals as the sugar side, very sweet, very sultry, decadent. Her voice just feels good. It feels smooth. There's something about it that's so sweet about her voice and so pure. And I'm not degrading Stevie Nicks in any way, shape, or form, but she was more of the spice in it, the kick in the Fleetwood Mac sound. She's got a little bit more gravel to her voice and a little bit more rough around the edges. And that's what makes the two of them complement each other so much. It's the literal musical definition of sugar and spice musically to me.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can definitely hear what you're saying, and it makes a lot of sense. The Stevie Nicks, she could do the soft, she could do the power, and Christine sort of just stayed in that sweet spot. You know, it's interesting that you brought up the word sugar and that sweet connotation, because that's kind of the way I was thinking of her voice when I was driving home from work today, was that she just had this very sweet voice. She also had an amazing ability to bring positivity and light to Fleetwood Mac, especially even during the Dark Rumors times when they were when there was all this turmoil in their personal lives. And some of what Stevie and Lindsey brought to the proceedings and brought to that album in particular, some of that stuff was kind of dark, but she always seemed to find that bright spot that just, you know, she saw the gift that she was given rather than the loss of that gift. She like focused on the good part of the relationship.
Definitely, definitely. And we're talking about her voice a lot here, but I also want to shine a massive spotlight on the fact that she is an amazing songwriter.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the band's biggest hits, obviously Little Lies immediately comes to mind, or even ones that she didn't sing, like Go Your Own Way. She wrote that, even though you automatically kind of think Lindsey in that because he's the vocalist.
Yeah.
That is a little bit of a heavier style for her kind of songwriting. But then you think about what she did with World Turning, which is from the self-titled album, where she took the song from the Peter Green Fleetwood Mac, The World Keeps on Turning, and kind of reworked it with Lindsey Buckingham. And they're two totally different songs when you listen to it. And what she brings to that really shows kind of her musical prowess in being able to take that one side of Fleetwood Mac and kind of transform it into this newer post Lindsey Nicks entrance in 75. Like she kind of brought that level to it. But then you think about some of the songs, like she has a rock chop too. I mentioned Go Your Own Way, but then you got Think About Me from Tusk. And while that's kind of, I know, like more of a Lindsey heavy album, songs like that show that she's kind of going neck and neck with that sound. She never kind of conformed to one thing. She always was kind of branching out in all the different areas that Fleetwood Mac wrote in. And she was able to speak in all of those musical voices with ease. And I think that is why she should be heralded as such an amazing songwriter, because she was able to kind of speak all the veins of Fleetwood Mac, where as a Stevie Nicks, when you hear her solo stuff and you hear her stuff with Fleetwood Mac, it kind of has this one wheelhouse. Does that make sense when I say that? And again, no knock on Stevie in any way, shape, or form. She's one of my favorites of all time.
Of course. Yeah. The thing that really is a treat when you listen to, especially, you know, those two albums, the White Album and self-titled and Rumors, and when you listen to these and you hear the blending of the voices of Nicks, Buckingham, and Christine McVie, there's a magic there. There's those three voices intertwine in such a perfect way that they create something unique and magical and something that can't be really replicated, because they have such three distinctive voices, and when they merge, they create a fourth distinctive voice.
Exactly. And even though the last tour that they did not include Lindsey, and they brought on Mike Campbell and was it Neil Finn?
Neil Finn.
That worked as Fleetwood Mac because of the fact that you had Stevie and Christine. I can't see that lineup anymore. If they were going to do anything under the Fleetwood Mac name, Stevie and Lindsey would have to figure out something and do it in tribute to her, because they obviously had the era of the band in the early 2000s, the Say You Will album where she
Mhm.
wasn't involved.
Yeah.
So if they were ever to kind of reform that voice of a band in celebration of her, it's the only way I could see it. If not, it would literally just be a Stevie solo show with Mick sitting in on drums, really.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. She went into that sort of semi-retirement, or I think about 98,
Mm-hmm.
for I guess about 15 years. And when they reconvened and did the dance,
Oh,
was it's one of the all-time great live albums and one of the all-time great live DVDs. It is just
mm-hmm.
so good. And when you see her, when you see them perform, and I was fortunate enough to see Fleetwood Mac perform only once. That was 1987, and unfortunately, Lindsay left the band right before the tour, so they replaced him with two others. But I did get to see what she could bring to the table and what Stevie could bring to the table. And Christine McVie doesn't take a back seat to anybody when it comes to live performances. I mean, you
No,
don't. She's not the front woman. She's behind the keyboard. She's behind the grand piano. So she doesn't have that out front stage presence, but she holds her own musically. Her songs are easily identifiable, and some of the songs you look at the back of some of these CDs and you go, uh, and sometimes the song title doesn't immediately bring what the song is, but if you heard that song on the radio, you'd go, "Oh, I've heard this a million times," and it's Christine McVie on vocals.
definitely.
Were
Yeah.
you
Her,
able to see them play live? Were you able to get to a show?
sadly, no. The last couple of tours, I'm not going to lie, we were just priced out of the market.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sad. I mean, it sucks that the legacy bands can command that much. Sucks for fans like mine where my pocketbook might not be as deep, pocket, whatever, might not be as deep to be able to spend the 600 that they were getting for some decent seats on the last tour. There's only so many bands that I kind of can allocate and budget to. And when that's kind of like a concert budget for, let's say, a whole summer, it's hard to justify. And the last few that they did like a couple, they did a night at Shea Stadium. They had like a 6 different bands on. I think it was like the Pink and the Who and all these different groups. It was a little festival. The tickets were so outrageous. I just, it broke my heart, but no, I never got to. And now there's a part of me that's hoping in celebration they can mend their fences and maybe do something at a stadium level where some of us poor folk can get into the shows.
Yeah, it's funny because yeah, you're right. The legacy acts they've kind of gone two different ways. They're the ones that have become so big that they can command triple digit ticket prices and even 4-digit ticket
Fleetwood Mac,
prices.
the Eagles,
Yeah.
like these household names. I hate
Mm-hmm.
to say, even though it's a totally different genre, Metallica, although I was able to get reasonably priced tickets for their upcoming kind of weekend broken up tour that they're doing
Mm-hmm.
throughout the country. So they're still, but they're at a stadium level. The Eagles play a lot of arenas, and when they play Madison Square Garden, I've checked the prices on their last few tours, and my jaw hits the ground.
Yeah.
You get priced out, but then you have a Billy Joel who, for the most part, the MSG run has been reasonably priced tickets. I've been to several shows on the 80 something show residency.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes on tour like next summer where he'll be down in, I think, Orlando with Stevie Nicks. They're doing stadiums though. So hopefully more people can get out to that. But unfortunately for me as a person, but fortunately for the band, they could charge whatever they want and easily sell out. And they were doing just that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other side of the spectrum there is that a lot of those legacy acts that are not the big ones, that are still out there doing it, they're doing like smaller venues, and you can go see them at a fairly reasonable price and have it be, where you're not as far away from the band. You don't have to watch the Jumbotron. You can actually watch the band on stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Christine McVie, she was born Christine Perfect, which is just an amazing fact. And she she had again not just a great career with Fleetwood Mac, but she also had this tremendous solo album in 1984, which was the second album with her name on it. The first was called Christine Perfect, and this one, Christine McVie, in 1984. I always kind of gravitated toward, that Love's Got a Hold on Me is the one that kind of made it big off this solo album. But I always loved Love Will Show Us How a little bit more. And also, there was a great song that she had Lindsay sing with her as a duet on this called Who's Dreaming This Dream. What are some of your underrated Christine McVie, songs?
I'll say for underrated, it was a hit though. So I don't know how underrated you're going to think, but when people think of Fleetwood Mac, they don't mention, I'm going to go back to the self-titled album, Over My Head.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was their first single to reach. This is from notes I have because this was part of my spoiler alert Playlist Wars top 10 list for Fleetwood Mac. And I truly stand by it. I think this is one of the band's best songs. And it was their first single to reach the Hot 100 since Oh Well 6 years prior, with a completely different lineup and a completely different sound. That song, there's just something about it that really drives home. This is a new era of Fleetwood Mac,
Mm-hmm.
and a new sound that people of the Peter Green era had to come to grips with, because you're going from Rattlesnake Shake to this. I don't even know if it's a 180. I don't know what the spectrum is on the dial, but it's a definite left turn from what people were expecting from the blues era of this group. And I don't think if you have songs as strong as Over My Head or the remake of World Turning, I don't see a Rumors ever happening, because I don't know if the band would have been embraced had they not had such a strong self-titled album in 75.
Yeah. She was like she was that connective tissue between those eras and the connective tissue within the band. So I think that she had that sort of adaptability, that chameleon like ability to do different things. And for me, I'll always remember seeing her live. And I was asked today, or was asked on Twitter today, what sort of is her signature song. And I think it's got to be Songbird. I think that's the song that I will always remember seeing her perform that live, and just her on a grand piano singing Songbird, and just is amazing. And it's a great song. And again, she just killed it with the love and romance in her lyrics. Mm-hmm. She could play that card better than anyone in the band.
And instead of just agreeing with you on that being a signature song, because you're absolutely right, I'll throw in a very high runner-up on my list, which would also be from Rumors, and that is You Make Love and Fun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I feel like that, again, maybe it's because I grew up with Rumors, and as a 2 and 3-year-old, I vividly remember this song playing on the album amongst all the other great songs on the album. And I think as a kid, because I had such musical kind of like, oh, let's play this, let's play that, let's play this. This album had so many different vibes and sounds as you kind of weave through Rumors, that it was why I loved it as an album, mm-hmm. because it didn't feel like just one band over and over again. It felt like there were so many voices, and hers being obviously one of the 3 of them.
Yeah. You Make Love and Fun was one of the things that came to mind about Rumors when I said that she sort of brought the light part to that album. And that was one of those moments where she was ruminating on that relationship, and not focusing on the fact that it was ending, but the fact that it existed at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What else you got? What else you got for Christine? I know you put some songs aside you wanted to talk about. What else you got?
Oh, we've been kind of talking about them as we're going along here, but let's hit the nail on the head here. I will give one more Playlist War spoiler here. I did not have this song on my list, and it really, really, really hurt. But I took a different approach to my list, and I wanted to include some of the Peter Green era.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, now I just want to double check because I don't want to lie. Because if this has been our Fleetwood Mac episode was actually episode 30. And this is why when I don't have my notes in front of me, it just goes off the rails. I just want to make sure I'm not about to lie here.
I remember listening to that. I remember you pulling out a Peter Green era song, and I was wondering if that would help you or hurt you in the voting.
Oh, it hurt. It hurt, but I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I am right. I did not include this on my list, and I want to kind of atone for that now on your show. And it's from Tango in the Night. It's Little Lies.
Mm-hmm.
That song, I can't picture Stevie singing. I just can't. And her voice is so smooth in this song, and that angelic chorus. There is a reason in 1987, my 10-year-old rocker had Tango in the Night on cassette on my wall, right underneath the next in alphabetical order, because I went up on my wall cassette rack. When I was a kid, I would start at A and go like A to Z. Tango in the Night, Appetite for Destruction sitting right above it. There's a reason that in 1987, I enjoyed both of those cassettes because they were incredible albums. And Little Lies, it didn't matter what style of music you listened to at that point. It was just a perfectly infectious song that you can't deny. And I'm not the biggest 80s slick production fan. I don't like the Phil Collins era of Eric Clapton albums. I felt like Phil Collins, as much as I love him and I love Genesis, when he got into everything with pop and all the drums started to sound the same, and you knew that Phil Collins had kind of something to do with it, I didn't know how I would react to that version of Fleetwood Mac. And Little Lies proved that they could do it and still hold that songwriter's level where that can shine through the overly poppy production of that album.
Yeah, and then you take a look at a song like Everywhere from that same album, and it's a very simple song, but the band was so good musically, they could put a lot of little intricate flourishes in a simple song like that. And the way Christine sang it, and then you get those backing vocals, and it turns it into something special, even though it's, like I said, it's just a very simple song.
Yeah. And look, Tom Petty is my favorite artist. We've talked about this many a times in our podcast friendship over the year and change here. Everyone's like, well, he's not an intricate songwriter. And I said, intricate is not always what matters. I love Rush, and yeah, their music was very intricate, and I love it for that. But I also love when they put out a covers album jamming on Summertime Blues, which is not an intricate song. I just love them as musicians. Tom Petty might not write the most intricate music, but you put a song on like Wildflowers, which is so simple and so pure and so beautiful. You're not thinking about, well, I could easily play that song. No, you're not. You're trapped in the beauty of the music. And that's what Tom Petty, why he spoke to me. And it's the same reason why Christine McVie spoke to me in her role in Fleetwood Mac. She was able to grab you with her songwriting skills and that voice that just, it's like, there, everything's going to be okay as you're listening to it. Cause it's comforting.
Yes.
Her voice it's comfort. It's audio comfort. I don't know another way to describe it.
Very warm, and welcoming, and like you said, enveloping. And I think you described it perfectly. One of the things I love about Fleetwood Mac is that everybody loves Rumors. It's one of the great albums of all time. A lot of love for the self-titled White Album. A lot of love for Tusk, a lot of love for Tango in the Night. I love this album, Mirage. I think Mirage is,
if you're holding them up, I should start.
Mirage to me is maybe one of the most underrated 80s albums.
I agree.
And Christine McVie all over this, Love in Store. And Hold Me
That's the
are
album, that album opener. I mean, oh man,
just
brilliant
fantastic
song.
songs, and I think that um, this is as good as anything they put out for me. And I know that it's it, so some people will say it sounds dated, but the songs were so strong, I don't care.
Yeah, but somebody will say the same thing about Tango in the Night.
Yeah.
And it's that 80s slick production, because I'll tell you right now, and I've had this argument with people before, and I'll just throw it out here just as not an arguable point. Let's just say it's a fact, even though it's not. I feel that Rumors has reached the timeless category.
Mm-hmm.
I don't attach a year when I hear that album. To me, that album could have been released yesterday, as well as it could have been released in 1977. It just has that timeless energy and sound to it, where Tango in the Night is easily identifiable as a late 80s product because of the sound. But I could tell you right now, you fast forward to Say You Will, that has a sound that could be any decade. You could say that's 90s. You could say that's 2000s. You could say, but 80s kind of has that, oh, it's the 80s. And I kind of think that depending on if you're a 80s baby or not, so to speak, is where you're going to land with that.
Yeah.
So sometimes the slick production masks otherwise amazing songwriting, because it's all about the fireworks and look at me, look at me. Like, if you get what I'm saying, with that
Mm-hmm.
kind of sound, when it's sweet and produced the way it is, it kind of just blends into the overall radio landscape at the time. Whereas the songwriting really sticks out on albums like Rumors and Self-Titled and Tusk. Because seriously, you listen to a song like Tusk with a full marching band in it, that's weird, but somehow they made it work.
Yeah. And it came off really great in the dance as well when they brought them marching up through the aisles. That was
It's
fantastic.
one of that's my favorite part. My favorite part. And I have a lot of favorite parts.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could argue, I could do a playlist and album on that and get into actual arguments with people, because there are so many brilliant renditions on that album alone.
Yeah. It's got my for me, the definitive version of I'm So Afraid is on that.
Dude, you and I right there. Completely agree. The I'm So Afraid version blows the album, even though I love the album version, blows it out of the water.
Does.
Absolutely.
So Christine, just a fantastic talent. It's sad that we lost her. She was 79 years old. Again, this was one of those gut punch losses for me. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm at work. It was a kind of a busy day today, and a coworker of mine sent over a link on Teams, on Microsoft Teams, and can't always tell what something is from the link. So I clicked on it, and it popped up, and it was the story of announcing her passing. And so that was a rough one. It was kind of tough to get through the rest of the day. And I'm part of me wants to immediately dive into Fleetwood Mac songs and Christine McVie songs, but I tend to not do that. I tend to avoid that and to hold myself back from doing that, because at work on a busy day is not the day to be crying in my cubicle. So I put off that, and I'm sure I will have an extremely deep dive into her music here in the coming weeks. But I want to thank you for your time for this, because I just felt like it was time to I felt like it was good to decompress, talk about Christine a little bit, talk about her career and her place in Fleetwood Mac, a band that has its very well defined place in rock music history. And then, like you said, even though everybody kind of gravitates towards Stevie and Lindsey, it's really, this band was every bit as much, if not more, Christine McVie's band than it was either of them.
Yeah, and it's a sad loss for music fans all over the place. And with a lot of the artists that we lose, no matter how much it hurts, it just makes me more thankful that we'll always be able to connect with them on a musical level. And I'll do that every time I put on Rumors now to the day I die.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to thank you because on very short notice you jumped on here with me and did this. I know this wasn't a normal edition of Michael's record collection. It was completely unscripted, unplanned, unresearched. It was just off the cuff talk between two people who love Fleetwood Mac and who love Christine's work in Fleetwood Mac. And so hopefully this was some type of catharsis. It was for me. I hope it was for you, Brian, and hopefully it will be for the people who watch this video or listen to the podcast. Hopefully they will get something out of it similar. And like you said, we'll always have the music. That's the great thing about them being famous is that they've put out this public record of work that we can revisit, whenever we want to. So it's almost like they're still here with us.
Yeah. And thankfully her voice was always calming to me as a child. It's always going to be. And, it's one of those things where it's like rest in power because of the gifts that she's brought. And God, it really sucks. It really sucks. I mean, 79 years old. I was shocked. I didn't realize she was 79.
I know.
I assumed she was much young. She just, her and Stevie had this magical, they wore it well. They were almost ageless.
Yeah.
And yeah, I hope I didn't incoherently ramble too much in this, but kind of, it's just speaking off from the heart here and still trying to process it.
Yeah.
And, just listening to a couple of songs before was choking me up. So it really sucks. It's a big loss.
Yeah, it is. It's a huge loss. So thank you, Brian. You can find Brian on the you could go back, and if you haven't listened to Playlist Wars, you can listen to all of their shows and get caught up before they make their triumphant return, which will hopefully be soon. I know you've done some shows with Colburn and Company as well. So do you have some more coming up, or is the winter kind of the time you guys shut down, or how does that work?
We usually shut down for December and January, and we are picking back up in February this year with some shows at some wineries in the area. Everything is posted up at briancolburn.com, and then we'll pick it up much more full steam ahead in the summer this coming year in 2023. We got one of my close friends from high school, Nikki Capiello's joined the group and is doing female vocals. So our song list kind of doubled over the last year, and it's been fantastic sharing the stage with her. So we have a lot of fun doing it, and we've been talking about Fleetwood Mac songs to add in now that we have two voices, and now it's going to become even more complicated because as much as you want to think about what songs you want to play, you kind of want to give maybe a little nod to Christine after all this. So
yeah,
we might have to do some more Fleetwood, because we had a list of 2 or 3 we were wrestling with, but now it's going to probably grow when we have our next band meeting.
All right, Brian, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. You and I will revisit each other when we have happier news and happier things to talk about. Thanks again for your time on such short notice.
My pleasure. It's always great talking music with you, man, and look forward to doing it again. Like you said, under happier circumstances. I got a stack of albums that I'm hoping you have, so we'll definitely talk.